Hello and welcome to a mini edition of the Tag1 Team Talks, the vlog and podcast of Tag1 Consulting. I'm Michael Meyers, the Managing Director of Tag1, and today we're celebrating and looking back on 20 years of Drupal, which is pretty insane and amazing. We're really proud to have many team members at Tag1 that have been part of Drupal for a very long time, many since the very beginning, and with many people on staff that have made major contributions and impact on the platform. I'm joined today by Nat Catchpole, who is one of our most senior team members at Tag1. I've known Nat for almost a decade and have had the honor of working with him across several different organizations, and I'm really excited to have you with us today, Nat, to give us your perspective. Why don't we start off? You can give people just a quick background, what your current role is in the Drupal community.
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm one of the core committer team. So I have two official titles. One is release manager, one is framework manager. So release manager makes sure that the minor and major and also patch releases kind of happen as they go alongside XGen. There's two of us who are working it together. And framework manager just means that PHP framework issues that need in-depth review, I'm one of the people that gets asked to review those when they need it. Not like every single patch goes through that, but just and we talk amongst ourselves about direction changes and things like that when there are tricky issues to review. And I've been doing that for quite a long time, about 7 years or something like that.
Is that how long you've been involved in the community in total, or?
No, it's a lot longer than that. I downloaded Drupal in 2004, so what's that, 16 and a half years ago, to use it on a site, but I wasn't contributing until 9 months, a year later. So basically, I made a little website with it, and it was while I was using other CMSs at the time. I'd had a post-nuke site in 2002, and then WordPress, and all of there was a big wide range of PHP CMSs at that point, and I was kind of working through them, and landed on Drupal about 2004, and then registered on Drupal.org in 2005, and I've been here since. Yeah.
Do you remember how you first heard of or came across Drupal, and why you decided to give it a shot?
I don't remember how I came across it at all, although it may have been a list, someone had done a blog post with a list of CMSs or something like that, I'm not sure. But the reason I started using it was, I think, because of the taxonomy module. So I had a lot of articles to put on a website, and I wanted to be able to categorize them. And at that point, I think WordPress did not even have tagging of any shape or form. And most of the other ones didn't either. And then Drupal had you could have a tag hierarchy, you could have different vocabularies that was already in there in 2005 or something. And I landed on that, and then kept going with it from there.
Which is pretty crazy, because didn't Marco on the Tag1 team invent taxonomy?
Yeah, I think that was 3 years before I started using it, a couple of years before I started using it, something like that. Yeah.
Wow,
and it's
pretty cool
that still use it for sites now. It hasn't even changed that much,
Amazing. So I know it was 15, 16 years ago, and I feel like we were kids when we first met. But do you remember your first commit and what version?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So when I started working on Drupal, I didn't actually know any PHP at all. I was I was teaching saxophone, and I was working random temping jobs in London and stuff like that on the side and things like that. So, but there were bugs that I wanted to get fixed that were affecting the site, because you can build a site with Drupal without code, and that was true now. That's true now. That was true in 2005. And so I had bugs I wanted to get fixed, and they weren't getting fixed. They were they'd been open for 2 years, something like that. So the first issue that I worked on that eventually got committed, not the first commit was a typo in a code comment or something. But the first one I actually registered on Drupal.org, because I've got this bug I want to get fixed. How can I get it fixed? and it got committed, I think, like 2 or 3 years later, and I actually had learned some PHP by then and helped get it fixed. It was Node 6162, which was so you got comments and you got 30 pages of comments. As soon as you ended up with 2 pages, the link to new comments on the post would just take you to the first page. It wouldn't take you to the second page. And it had been open since like 2004. I think it got fixed in Drupal 6, something like that. So it was like, it had been open like a year and a half, 2 years before I found the issue. And then it took another 2 or 3 years to fix. But it was like, that was a hard issue to fix. And it was literally like, I was learning PHP between finding the issue and it getting committed at the end.
Wow, it's pretty amazing to hear that. Like, you think about like the velocity and the kind of stuff you're working on today. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I literally learned. I mean, I was teaching myself alongside other jobs and stuff, but a lot of programming I learned through working on Drupal core, like trying to fix stuff I was hitting in, and then like for its own sake to kind of get better at things and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So would you say that Drupal core is a big way of how you've learned PHP? And
yeah, definitely, because it was like, I mean, I wouldn't have even known where to look for like boot camps or something like that. I don't think that was like mid-2000s that was really happening. And I had like jobs, like my first kid was born around that time, stuff like that. So it's like in the evening, and then one job I had where I didn't have actually much office work. So in the office, like, I would like go on Drupal.org and review issues and stuff, and basically picking it up by osmosis. Like, it probably took a lot longer than learning properly, but it's like you had people who were like, you could go and you could ask questions on IRC of people and get answers, and like there's plenty of people to teach you. It's not like you have one person that's setting you stuff to do. You've got like, at that time, I don't know how many regular contributors there were, maybe like 30, 50 people. You can just ask questions and they'll happily give you an answer because you're trying to work on stuff that gets it fixed. So yeah, it helps a lot, you know.
Wow. So you've worked on an insane number of things. What is the least favorite thing that you've been a part of, and what is your favorite thing that you've been a part of?
I think the favorite thing I've been a part of is probably the performance work, and I haven't been doing much recently because I'm basically, most of the time now, I commit patches and review patches nearly all the time, and to keep on top of that is like a big effort. So actually working on patches myself, unless it's for client work, which is different, but I don't really get to choose as much what comes in with that. I don't actually work on like core programming that much. So look, when I was mainly working on like performance, like just before I got commit access, and that's still some of my favorite work to do, and I'd like to kind of get back to some of that a little bit. And things like cache tags and multiple entity loading, like kind of started working on it around Drupal 6, and some of them got into like Drupal 7 and then Drupal 8, and kind of happy with the progress that we made on Drupal performance. Like, it's kind of got worse, but we did fix it. We got it less, maybe made it less worse or something like that. And least favorite, that's a good question. I mean, there are issues open now that I remember looking at 2007, and they're still open today. So I think it's the kind of, or sometimes I work on issues and then like there's another issue and I work on the other issue like a year later, and then like 4 years later I realize it's the same bug or something like that. That really, like, I hate that. So like, just when the queue is out of control and you don't know what's in there, and like sometimes you're working on things that other people, and you're duplicating work with each other rather than on the same thing, and I've like spent a lot of time trying to triage the queue over the years to kind of cut that down so that actually what is in there reflects what needs to be done, and you can find if there is or is not a bug report for the problem that you have. And I think it's probably, like, it's not a lot better now. There's this new bug smashing initiative for Drupal core where there's been a lot of triage happening, and that's starting to make a dent, but the backlog is big. So, and that's like, makes it hard to find, like, if you've got a problem, it makes it hard to find a fix for it. And when you want to fix a problem, it makes it hard because you don't always know that you're actually in the right place doing what you need to do.
I'd love to do a follow-up talk with you at some point, like one of our core confidentials. You have very unique insight into like what it takes to manage such a large contributor base. I can't imagine what it's like to be, you know, neck deep in these issue queues, and you know, wrangling all of that is pretty crazy. So thank you for doing that. All right. Favorite, least favorite feature. All the things that Drupal does, what do you think, not you know, most impact, but personally to you, what do you love, your favorite feature? What do you hate?
I mean, the favorite has got to be the entity system. Like, that was the reason I started using it, even though it wasn't called the entity system then. And it's just like, you know, fields and CCK, it's just, I've never seen anything that approaches what you can do with Drupal, and it's kind of improved. Like, conceptually, it hasn't changed for like 15 years, really, like since CCK and views got added to contrib. The concepts that you're kind of building sites with have not really fundamentally changed since that, and that's like what, 2006, 7, something. But like technologically, obviously, it's improved like dramatically. It's still problems, but it's gone a very, very long way. Like the past 5, 8 years, something like that. Like really like matured a lot. So yeah, it's just like, that's, for me, that's like what makes Drupal what it is. Everything else is kind of, I mean, even if it's good, it's only good because of the entity system kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember the content construction kit and some of the technological nightmares of it early on. So it's definitely improved dramatically, and
there was Flexi Field before that I nearly used. That was one of my early Drupal decisions, was like whether to use CCK or Flexi Field. And Flexi Field used to put every single field on the whole site in this huge table, and all the values would be strings in the same column, but they would all mean different things. And I never actually used it. And I was very glad that I did. Like about 2 years later, by the time it was just like, I don't know which one to use.
Yeah. I don't know why I recall CCK creating like an insane number of tables or something, but you know.
Yeah, no, that was the difference between it. So Flexible was literally one table for all of your content on your whole site, for every content type, every field was just this massive, like basically like putting in a spreadsheet. And then CCK was like a table for every field, which has its own problems, but it's not as bad as having one.
Two ends of the insane spectrum. It's definitely come a long way. So, least favorite? Anything drive you nuts?
There's some modules in core that I really want to kill. Not because they're bad, but just because like every year there'll be like a bug, and I know that they're not really getting used. Like RDF is one. Nothing wrong with RDF, but no, like sites don't really use it, and then like what, like we use this single easy RDF for testing, and that wasn't PHP 7.4 compatible or something like that. And it's like, if we didn't have the modular core, we wouldn't have to worry about the dependency. So like it's somewhat hard to get new features into core, like big features, but it's extremely hard to get rid of them once they're in. And like there's some of those issues have been open for years, and it's like you have to find a way for people to get off the modules, and we are slowly getting better at this, but it takes a long time. I was literally before this call, I was looking at an issue about like how to deprecate modules properly and stuff. So.
What's the biggest missing feature? What do you think Drupal really needs that it doesn't have?
I would say like, it's not really a feature, but a more reliable database upgrade path between releases than we have had, because that is the thing since forever that catches everyone out and catches us out as core developers as well. It's just incredibly difficult to get the updates right, and it's like, yeah, like the update system is very old, and there are a lot of very, very difficult like dependencies between updates, which ones run first, things like that. Very, very, very difficult, but it's not really a feature, but that's what I'm picking.
So what do you think is the best thing about being part of Drupal?
I think like being able to, like for me, being able to learn it and then start doing it as a job without any like traditional like computer science background or anything like that was great. And it's like I was like encouraged to contribute when I joined the site and when I started looking at issues. And I would like ham-fistedly try to help, and people would steer you in the right direction. And I think that is still true today. Like there is a lot of support in place for new contributors, and you can find your way to getting stuff fixed, even if you don't necessarily have the skills to fix it yourself. There's like ways to help with issues to move them forwards, whether it's like testing or triaging or whatever it is. So you can help to get stuff done, and you can learn by doing. And that still happens with me on issues today. Like I'll learn new stuff all the time reviewing issues, because it's like there's always bits of core that I know nothing about, and then suddenly something gets in the RTBC queue and I have to try and learn about it. So
it's an amazing opportunity for people to get an education that's unparalleled. Real hands-on experience. I think a lot of people feel that way, that, through contributing to open source, Drupal in particular, they've learned so much, and it's accelerated their, careers, their, everything. So, all right, wrapping up. I really appreciate your time, and I know that you're crazy busy, neck deep in the issue queues. So before we go, though, real quick, is there anything you want to add? Anyone you want to thank?
So, I thought you were going to ask if you had any mentors early on.
Yeah, like is there anyone that you want to thank for, getting you to where you are today? Looking back, are there people that stand out? Or a shout out to anyone in particular? Or?
So very early on, when I was like first started on the issue queue, Charlie Chicks, I can never say his last name, Nugezi, and Andrew Byron and Peter Alanin were some of the very early issue queue people that like started talking to me and helping me get through. So that was really what kind of kept me working on Drupal core once I started, if that makes sense. Like if my comments had been ignored, I probably would have drifted off, and they would actually like give me feedback and stuff like that very early on, and kept doing so for several years. So definitely like those two from the beginning. And then like since I've been like a regular contributor, like there's too many people to name, so I couldn't start a list because I'd forget people, because it's just like, yeah.
Fair enough. There have been so many people that have helped, me and helped Drupal. Awesome. Really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and say hello to everybody and sharing your look back. Have an awesome day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.